We see so many women who've never had cholesterol problems in the past suddenly see their numbers go up in their 40s and their 50s. Because cholesterol in midlife is more of a hormone story, not just a food story. So you can eat as little as you want, exercise as much as you want, you're not going to see changes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Maybe you started to experience some hormonal symptoms, maybe you're post-menopause, but we know now that those old fat loss strategies just are not cutting anymore because your body is inherently different. So now it is time to learn how to work with this body instead of against it so you can open up those fat burning pathways, get your energy back, and feel confident again. So today we are talking all about cholesterol because this is a topic of conversation that just keeps coming up. Women on consultation calls, women who come into our coaching program, they go for their annual labs and the nurse calls a few days later or they get their results and they're like, well, your cholesterol is high. And you instantly start to panic. Your mind goes straight to, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart attack. Oh my gosh, clogged arteries. I'm going to have to take some medications. And we just start to spiral and, worst case scenario keeps popping in our head, right? This always happens. And the worst part is that you feel like you're doing everything right. I'm not even consuming that much fat in my diet. I eat fairly clean. I exercise. What's going on? And so suddenly in midlife, we see this all the time, where your cholesterol numbers just seem to creep up higher and higher, even when nothing in your lifestyle has changed. And the truth is, it's not just about your diet. There's a lot more things that are nuanced here. So today I want to break down, is this actually an issue? Why does this happen? The myths about cholesterol, and then also how to help get your cholesterol levels down because we don't want to see those numbers creep up, right? So first and foremost, big picture is cholesterol gets a bad reputation, right? But it's actually not the villain like we think it is. Cholesterol is the raw materials that our body uses to make our hormones. We need it for estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, even to help with vitamin D. And during perimenopause and menopause, when our ovaries dramatically start to reduce hormone production, what we see is the body is left scrambling, going, how do we get more progesterone? How do we get enough estrogen? And so one of the first adjustments it makes is actually shifting cholesterol. And this is why we see so many women who've never had cholesterol problems in the past suddenly see their numbers go up in their 40s and their 50s because your body's like, oh, we need to build more. Therefore, we need more cholesterol to build it because that's how it's trying to fix the problem, even though it's not really fixing the problem. And so why does cholesterol go up in menopause specifically? So when we lose estrogen's protective role, estrogen helps regulate your cortisol level or your cholesterol levels by increasing HDL, which is the good cholesterol. So HDL, we want to be high. It clears fats from your arteries. That's a good thing. It also helps decrease LDL. So LDL is the cholesterol we want to be low. So HDL high, LDL low. So this is the kind of like bad cholesterol that we have that can build up in our vessel walls. So supporting blood vessel flexibility as well is another role of estrogen where, it allows your arteries to be relaxed. They don't harden. And if they harden, you can imagine if you're putting water through a hard hose versus a softer hose, the pressure is going to be higher. So then we see higher blood pressure as well when our arteries get harder. So when estrogen starts to decline, we lose that protective role where now HDL, doesn't increase as much to help clean up everything in our arteries. LDL starts to go up. So now we see more stuff actually accumulating in our vessels. And then our vessels become hardened. So our blood pressure can go up, which of course is not what we really want, right? So even though ovarian production declines, your body still does need estrogen and progesterone. So what does it do? It's going to ramp up that cholesterol production, like I talked about, in your liver, trying to supply the raw materials for those hormones. So think of cholesterol as almost the building blocks for those hormones. If your hormone house is starting to crumble, the bricks are starting to fall apart, your body starts ordering more bricks to help build that house back up. We also see changes in fat metabolism. And so lower estrogen impacts how you process and store fat, which I'm sure many of you are struggling with and are like, oh yeah, I knew it. I knew estrogen had a role. So what happens is insulin sensitivity decreases when estrogen goes down. So we don't utilize sugars as well. And so we don't clear them as well, which leads to something called more triglycerides type of fat. We see that the fat shifts towards the belly, where many of you are like, yep, I can attest to that, which is more metabolically active and inflammatory as well. And the liver is also going to produce and clears fats less efficiently. So what's happening is that we're seeing our body is going to not be able to break down fat as well. And we're also going to be able to clear it less efficiently. And our body's going to more naturally want to store it. So all this is going to show up in our blood work as higher cholesterol or higher triglycerides or both. And so now we also have to consider stress and cortisol. Of course, we cannot have a single podcast where we are not mentioning this. In midlife, stress is often high. Even if you're like, no, it used to be so much worse before, Steph. Like, I feel good now. Or this is normal. I can handle it. This is just life. Doesn't matter. You don't have to perceive it as stress for your body to experience it as stress. And so what happens is cortisol, the stress hormone that is produced when we are in times of stress, of go, 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 under eating, over exercising, not getting enough sleep, taking our kids from one place to the other, worrying about our parents. Maybe there's some trauma and grief and financial stuff and deadlines at work, and you're skipping your breakfast, having coffee and empty stomach, all the things that increase that stress hormone. We need to realize that that stress hormone is also built from cholesterol. So if your body is in this constant state of go, 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 overachiever, thrive on a little bit of anxiety, right? It will shunt more cholesterol towards our stress hormones at the expense of balancing. So then what we see is that cholesterol rises even more. And so when we put all of this together, when your doctor tells you your cholesterol is up, it's not just about what you're eating. Honestly, most of the time, it's not about what you're eating. It's about what your body is going and how it's processing things internally based on the hormonal changes that we're experiencing and the stress that we have. This is why the old, just eat less fat, cut the cholesterol from your diet, rarely works for women. We see this all the time. It doesn't make a difference for the majority of women, specifically when they're in perimenopause, menopause, and the years that follow. Because cholesterol in midlife is more of a hormone story, not just a food story. That being said, if you're eating junk food all the time, probably not going to have the best labs, right? So I want to cover some myths in cholesterol and midlife before we dive into how do we fix this, because I don't want my labs to be there anymore, right? So we, again, have been taught to fear cholesterol, but most of what women hear about is that outdated information. It's flat out wrong now. So I want to bust a few of the biggest myths that we typically see. And so the first one is that cholesterol is bad. The truth is cholesterol, like I mentioned, is not the villain. It's the building block for estrogen, for progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, vitamin D, even your cell membranes. And so without cholesterol, our body literally would not be able to function. The problem isn't cholesterol itself, but when it becomes imbalanced or oxidized or becomes inflammatory, because now we know that can breed chronic conditions, chronic diseases that are preventable. We know that's going to make fat loss feel impossible because inflammation blocks your fat burning pathways. So you can eat as little as you want, exercise as much as you want. You're not going to see changes. Number 2, the second myth is only total cholesterol matters. No, that's not what matters here. Total cholesterol by itself pretty much tells you nothing. And here is why. Number 1, cholesterol comes in different packages. Cholesterol doesn't just float around your body on its own. It has its own little boats, we'll call them, called lipoproteins. And the main ones that you hear about is LDL, the one that we want to be low, and HDL, the one that we want to be high. HDL is that good one. Because like I mentioned, it's going to clean out that excess fats and take them to your liver to get rid of, which is also why liver health is such a big deal when we're looking at our lab health, but also fat loss in perimenopause and menopause, because once estrogen declines, we typically start to struggle with liver health and detox, which is a topic for a whole other day. Then we also have that LDL, which is the one that we want to be low, right? It's that bad cholesterol. And not all LDL, though, is equally as harmful. So what we see is that LDL particle size matters. So the size of the boats, because it comes in different sizes. There are small, dense LDL particles that slip into artery walls easily. and are more likely to oxidize and accumulate. So if you think about it, small little particles, much easier to seep through things, right? If we have large, fluffy LDL, it is far less harmful. It's less likely to get stuck and sneak its way in there and accumulate. So two women could actually have the same total cholesterol, but one could have mostly large, harmful particles and one could have dangerous, smaller particles. That's another thing that really matters there. And the ratio tells us a much better story. So we want to look at the ratios between cholesterol types, and we also want to look at our triglycerides. So triglycerides to our HDL ratio is one of the strongest predictors of heart risk. Lower is always going to be better. Then we have our LDL to HDL ratio. It gives context as to whether LDL is balanced out by enough protective HDL. Because if we have a lot of LDL, the stuff that accumulates, we want to have just as much or if not more HDL to help clear it out. And so we want to make sure that there's a better balance there. So for an example, a woman with high total cholesterol but excellent ratios may be at a lower risk of developing chronic conditions like cardiovascular disease than someone with a normal total cholesterol but with poor ratios. This is why we want to look at those ratios specifically. And then we also have something called ApoB, and this is the unsung marker that most people don't think about. ApoB is a protein carried on every single LDL particle, the one that we want to be low. And measuring ApoB tells you the number of particles rather than just the amount of cholesterol inside of them. So high ApoB means more cholesterol-carrying particles crowding your bloodstream. This is a higher chance they will cause trouble. It's far more predictive of cardiovascular risk than total cholesterol on its own. And the last myth or thing that we have to consider here is that total cholesterol is absolutely misleading. In menopause, total cholesterol often rises because your body is trying to make more hormones, so it's giving you more bricks to build your house. So if your HDL is still high, which is what's responsible for cleaning out the vessels, triglycerides are low, and your particle sizes are healthy, that high cholesterol might not actually be dangerous. It's simply your body adapting. This is why women often get scared into treatments or medications that they may not actually need, when a deeper look would actually show a different story. So I like to think about cholesterol as delivery trucks, right? They are delivering that to your body. So we have the LDL trucks. Delivery trucks are bringing groceries, cholesterol to different neighborhoods in the city. These are your cells. The HDL trucks are the cleanup crew that cleans up the empty boxes and brings them back to the warehouse, which is your liver. And so the important part here is that we have that truck size, like I mentioned, of those LDL particle sizes. So big, roomy trucks, the large, fluffy LDL can carry a lot of groceries in one trip. They're less likely to get stuck in traffic or scrape the road. Tiny little beat-up trucks, the small, dense LDL, carry less, but they are often, on the road more because we need more of them to deliver the groceries, obviously. They're more likely to cause accidents, slip into the sides of streets, creating blockages like plaque, which we don't want. The number of trucks, the ApoB, tells you how many trucks are on the road. You could have a normal amount of groceries, total cholesterol, but if it's spread across hundreds of trucks, those tiny trucks, the roads will get jammed. If we have fewer larger trucks, then we have smoother traffic, even if that total load, that total cholesterol is the same. And then we have that traffic ratio, triglycerides to your HDL. If there are too many delivery trucks, triglycerides, and not enough cleanup crews, HDL, the city gets cluttered with lots of boxes and trash and it can't keep up. So a good balance of the cleanup crews to the delivery trucks is what helps keep everything flowing. So I hope that's an analogy that kind of makes sense. So, like I mentioned, when your doctor says your total cholesterol is too high, we need to look a little bit deeper. We also automatically assume that high cholesterol means heart attack waiting to happen, right? But the truth is, heart disease risk is so much more complex. Inflammation, poor blood sugar control, visceral fat, blood pressure, lifestyle, stress, lack of recovery, all play a much bigger role in our cholesterol number. Cholesterol is just a marker, not just to destiny. So that cholesterol impacting that heart attack is one small factor. We have way more factors that a lot of people have no idea are connected to heart disease. Myth number 4 is that if you eat more cholesterol, it's going to raise your cholesterol. And the truth is, for most people, dietary cholesterol like eggs and shrimp have a minimal effect on blood cholesterol. What impacts it more is going to be highly processed foods, high sugar intake, not from things like fruit. I'm talking about like candy bars and chocolate and things like that. Alcohol is a big one. Stress and poor sleep. Those all drive up your triglycerides and your oxidized LDL, the ones that accumulate in your arteries. So those are way more impactful of raising your cholesterol than actual dietary cholesterol. And then, of course, myth number 5, which is my favorite, is that the only solution is a statin. Medications can be helpful in some cases, obviously, but they're not the whole story. Supporting blood sugar, improving your hormonal balance, improving your liver function, reducing inflammation, and yes, sometimes even HRT can help shift cholesterol without relying on drugs. I was getting mentored by a doctor not that long ago who were actually talking about statins, and they were talking about how long-term statins are actually terrible for your mitochondrial health. And so why does that matter? Your mitochondria, if you remember, are the powerhouses of the cell. You might remember that from like Bio 30. And so we want healthy mitochondria because the healthier they are, the better they are at taking food and turning it into fuel so that you don't store food as fat. So what happens is statins can actually damage mitochondria in the long term, making your body worse at taking food and turning it into fuel, which drives up inflammation, makes you more insulin resistant, making your blood sugar worse, lowering your stress tolerance, negatively affecting your liver, all things that will make cholesterol worse in the long run, but also your overall health and increase your risk of developing other chronic conditions. And so I like to stay away from statins as much as I can. Again, not a doctor, I'm just relaying the information that we have received and that we've seen in practice. When I used to work for the health region, the side effects of statins, a lot of people didn't like either. Lots of muscle achiness, lots of negative side effects that people just did not like. And it's not addressing the root cause, which is usually dietary in terms of poor blood sugar control. Stress is honestly the biggest one, inflammation, getting enough sleep, being active. And so there's lots of things that we can do to help improve your cholesterol levels that actually get to the root, as opposed to just letting all this stuff still happen, which will increase your risk of other chronic conditions like diabetes, for example, despite the fact that you're on the statin. So what can we do that, especially for someone who doesn't like taking medications? I mean, I don't even like taking Advil personally. I'm very much like, if I can do things naturally, I will. Does that mean I never take it? No, because, sometimes you got a migraine and you need something, right? But I find I'm very sensitive to medications as well. It doesn't take me very much. I literally take children's Advil when I have a headache, and it works for me because I'm a hyper responder to stuff. So that always makes me nervous as well. So what are some things that we can do to influence your cholesterol levels in a positive way in perimenopause and menopause without being extreme? So the first one is improving our blood sugar balance. This does not mean cutting out your carbohydrates. I did a whole podcast on blood sugar and carbohydrates and what to do if you've been eating low carb and fasting and not seeing improvements in your blood sugar. This is why. Carbs can actually help you improve your blood sugar control. Because what happens is if we're eating low calorie and we're eating low carb, we're also already more insulin resistant because estrogen starts to decline. We are stressing out our body, and we are on all the time as women, right? We are mom, we are wife, we are daughter, we are that person at work that everybody goes to. You're the taxi mom, you're go, you're getting the groceries, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing all the things. Not me, my husband does like all the cooking and cleaning, bless his heart, thank goodness, because I would not be well otherwise. I'm very blessed that way. But for most of us, we do everything. Let's be honest. The demand on women is a lot. And when there is demand on us, our body goes, oh, we're stressed. Okay, because we're not meant to be on all the time, but we are. And our downtime is scrolling on social media, which is just driving up our cortisol even more. And so what happens is we're in this stress state. And if we are not eating appropriately, if we are not eating enough calories, if we're not eating enough carbohydrates, our body goes, we don't have enough energy to meet this demand on our body. So cortisol tells your liver, hey, we need to create sugar and dump it into our bloodstream so that we have energy. And so that's taking away from your body being able to process fat and your cholesterol. Okay. So now we have our blood sugars going up. Our body then needs to pump insulin in to help us shuttle sugars to the cells that we need. Even if we're just stressed out, sitting at our desk, pissed off at Joe at work because he made me mad again at another meeting, right? So now we have insulin coming in, taking sugar to the cells. If we're in this constant cycle of high stress, under eating, over exercising, not sleeping, cortisol just keeps telling your body, dump out sugar, dump out sugar, dump out sugar. And so if we actually have carbohydrates in our meals, cortisol doesn't have to go up because we have adequate energy. If we're eating enough calories, cortisol doesn't need to go up because we have enough energy there. So what you want to do to help support your blood sugar, to therefore help your cholesterol levels, but also lower your stress and also help you lose fat, which is a win-win-win all over the place. What we want to do is have a meal within 90 minutes of waking. No coffee on an empty stomach. Have something small beforehand. When you are eating, try to eat some protein or veggies first before dipping into carbs. So at breakfast, have some eggs and sausage before having that toast. Super simple. Have some yogurt before having your berries. We overcomplicate it. Every single meal, even if you want to have cake. How can I make this better by having some protein or veggies first? That's going to help stabilize your blood sugars. And then making sure that we are eating every 4 to 5 hours a balanced meal. If we need a small snack in between, we can, but we don't want to be grazing all day because that keeps our blood sugar elevated as well, which is going to cause issues. So really focusing on that meal timing can actually make a massive difference, as well as that order of eating for your blood sugars. Next one is supporting your liver and detox pathways. Your liver makes and clears cholesterol. Your liver also helps with hormone detoxification. It helps with toxin detoxification, obviously. We live in a very toxic world now, between hair care products, skin care products, the air that we breathe, the food that we consume, the plastics that we eat out of, how our foods are processed, all of those things. And so when our liver is so busy with that, it can't break down and clear cholesterol. And what happens is then toxins start to accumulate. So our body's trying to prioritize, what do we do? And so now we have these toxins that if we don't have enough protein, we don't have enough carbohydrates, don't have enough energy, our body's constantly telling us to pump out sugar because we're stressed out. Our body's toxin detoxification slows down. And so what happens is these toxins need to get stored somewhere because otherwise they're damaging our body. They get stored in fat cells. When they get stored in fat cells, they change the structure of the fat cell, making them harder to break down. But also those fat cells are emitting more inflammation. Inflammation further increases cortisol, makes our blood sugars worse, blocks our fat burning pathway. So even though we're eating less and moving more, our labs are getting worse and our waistline isn't getting any smaller. So how do we support our liver and detox pathways? I did a whole podcast on liver, a whole podcast on detoxing, but ways that we can help improve this are making sure that we're eating enough cruciferous veggies. So getting at least one per day, whether that's kale, your Brussels sprouts, your broccoli, your cauliflower, one serving of those. You can also incorporate things like beets, leafy greens. Dandelion tea is wonderful. Water with lemon, another thing that helps with our liver. Keeping things hydrated. Dehydration increases inflammation, blocking fat burning, negatively affecting our liver. We need to be able to flush things out, so staying adequately hydrated. Decreasing your stress, if we're going to get to this one. Next one is making sure we have enough muscle. Muscle mass is our insurance policy. Resistance training is going to do a few things. One, improve insulin sensitivity, which will then help us with our cholesterol levels. It will help lower our triglycerides. It will give us a better lipid profile. So when we're resistance training, what we want to do is we actually want to challenge ourselves to get stronger. So the fitness classes and all the things that you're doing, lifting with 2-pound weights, isn't doing crap. That's just cardio for the most part. What we want to do is follow a structured progressive overload program. If you can do, let's say we're aiming for 10 reps. If you can do 12 or more, you need to up your weights, drastically slow down the movement so that you can't do more than 2 above where you're supposed to be. You do that exercise, you take a 2-minute break, and then you go again. If you're like, that's too easy, you're not pushing yourself hard enough in those 10 reps. So you're doing 3 rounds of that 2-minute break in between, 90-second break in between, and then we're on to the next exercise. You're following the same program for 4 to 6 weeks before it changes. So every Monday looks the same. Wednesday will be different from Monday, but every Wednesday looks the same. Every Friday looks the same. And week to week, we are challenging ourselves. Can I get 1 more rep in? Can I up my weights a little bit? Because that's going to tell your body, hey, Stephanie keeps trying to pick up the stupid weight and row it every week, and we can't meet the demand of what she wants. Therefore, we need to adapt to get stronger, to build more muscle, so that we can do what she is demanding on us. If you never get to the point where you're struggling in those last couple of reps, you are never sending that muscle building signal. And so you need to challenge yourself. This is the biggest mistake I see with women in training, is that they're afraid to lift heavier. Use some machines. Use a Smith machine, use cable pulleys, do the seated leg extension, anything that makes you feel safer in the long run, where you can push heavier. There is nothing wrong with that. But you're never going to build muscle if your body has no reason to, because it can already do what you're asking it to do. Number 4, managing your stress and inflammation. So again, like I mentioned, if cortisol demand is high, cholesterol gets shunted to your cortisol production. We're going to see your hormone production starts to decrease even more. Progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. Blood sugar control gets worse. Your thyroid function gets worse. So your body gets worse at burning calories, which obviously makes weight loss way harder. And your body is definitely going to store fat. We are going to see your liver detoxification slow down. Bloating gets worse. We see even more inflammation. Energy gets worse. Sleep gets worse. And so you can see how all of this just keeps getting worse. And we're like, blood sugar is the problem. What's causing the poor blood sugar? In the thousands of women we've trained, it's only been 2 people where carbs is like legitimately the problem with blood sugar. So what we want to do is we need to de-stress. So many of us are go, go, go all the time. And they're like, I don't feel stressed. Let me ask you this. Where in your day do you actively take time to slow down your heart rate, to slow down your breathing rate, to legitimately calm down? Most of us, literally never. Even when we're just trying to relax, we're listening to a podcast to be educational, which I love when you listen to my podcast. I think it's great. Hopefully you'll learn a lot, but you also have to find time to not be constantly having to be productive all the time. So this can be things like really slow walking, enjoying the sunshine. This can be deep breathing just for 2 minutes. It's crazy how it changes on my Oura ring. Just, focusing maybe time in the Bible, praying. That's a big one for me. Doing a devotional. Maybe it's a gratitude. Maybe it's journaling. There's so many things that you can do to actively slow down your heart rate and breathing rate. For me, I just started painting again. I haven't done that in years. And so it's felt really good. And all of these things help redirect cholesterol towards your hormones, like progesterone and estrogen, and being able to be broken down by your liver instead of your body just being hopped up on stress. You can also consider hormone therapy with guidance, obviously. In some women, restoring estrogen and progesterone balance can improve your cholesterol levels. However, what you have to be aware of is that even if you're on HRT, if you're super high stress, your body gets even worse at producing estrogen and progesterone. And so we need to make sure that we are still addressing the stress component, because the root cause is still happening under the surface, which will lead to other issues in the long run, like poor blood sugar control and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, you just need to look beyond that total cholesterol. Look at the particle size, ApoB, your HDL, to triglyceride ratios, your LDL. These give you a fair, good reading as to what's going on in your body, understanding where true heart disease risk lies, rather than just looking at total cholesterol. And so if you've seen your cholesterol levels rise in menopause, don't panic. Don't assume it's proof that you're unhealthy, that you're not trying hard enough, or what the future holds, or that your only option is medication. Instead, see it for what it really is. Your body is adapting to a massive hormone transition, and it's not a villain. It's the building blocks that your body is trying to keep you balanced. And understanding why is this happening, taking inventory and asking the why is incredibly important. That way you can choose the right strategies. Maybe it's supporting blood sugar better, your liver, managing stress, doing some resistance training, putting on muscle mass, supporting your hormones. It's likely a combination of all those things, right? But if we start working on our meal timing and eating enough calories and getting enough carbohydrates, that'll lower your stress. That'll improve your blood sugar. It'll support your liver function. So there's some big rocks that a lot of people are missing that are going to make the biggest difference. But we're all looking for a supplement or some crazy routine that needs to be done, which is not what you need. It's not what you need. And so your midlife cortisol shift does not mean decline. It does not mean you're hooped. It's just another signal and more information that your body is needing some support somewhere. And so if you're struggling with, it kind of sounds like all those things, or, I don't really know where to start, just book a consultation call. We do this for free, where we assess where you're at, give you what is the most important thing for you to focus on right now. What is the thing that's holding you back in multiple categories, whether it's your labs, whether it's your weight loss journey, whatever it might be, your energy, your sleep, your digestion. We help you figure that out. We help you figure out how many calories you should be eating. Are there adjustments you need to do to your exercise routine? And that is free. That is not a sales call. There's no pitch. We're genuinely just here to help you and to help women take control of their lives. So if this is helpful, book a consultation call, share with your friends. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.